Hey guys, Mike here. In this video, I'm going to explain what to do or what you can do when a monster does a gap opener on you. So what's a gap opener? Well, a gap opener is just the opposite of a gap closer, right? So if I'm the hunter here, a gap closer is a move that closes the gap. But what's a gap opener? Okay, so a gap opener comes in multiple forms, and the monster does this in a few ways. So first way a monster can do a gap opener is, say you're right by the monster's face and the monster does a charge and the charge is here. Well, the total distance between you and the monster just increased, so it's essentially a gap opener. Now, another way the monster can do a gap opener is, say you're over here and say the monster's here and the monster literally jumps back like this. There's some monsters that do this, namely like the flying wyverns. I know Volcana does this when Volcana wants to do the sweeping ice breath. There's a lot of examples of this. TLDR, gap opener, is when the distance between you and the monster increases. And for melee weapon users, this is not good because you can't hit the monster. That should be pretty obvious. So what can you do when the monster does a gap opener? Well, there's not much you can do if you're caught off guard. So let's take the first example where the monster does a charge. And say you guarded, you have a shield or something and you block the charge so you don't take damage, but the monster ends up here. Well, in this case, obviously you're going to turn around. You have to gauge whether the monster is close enough that you can get a hit in. And usually if it's like a Kushala dash and the monster dashes this far, you're not going to get a hit in. So one thing you can do is just do item management. So like if you need to refresh your slinger ammo or sharpen, you can start sheathing. And for the heavy weapons, this is a 1.5 second sheath usually. And if the monster created, 1.5 seconds greater of distance between you, usually it's about 2 seconds or more, you're not going to even try and attack them. You're just going to stay here, you're going to sheath, you're going to do item management, you're going to try sheath and pick up slinger ammo because you can only pick up ammo when you're sheath. You could even sharpen, like even if you don't have a palico, you can just pop a smoke bomb over here so the monster won't know where you are. You just sharpen right here, right in the middle of the arena. Or you can even heal too. You can pop smoke and heal. You don't even need to pop smoke. You can just heal, right? So as long as you're doing something productive with this downtime, this forced downtime, then it's not that big of a deal. What a lot of beginner hunters will do is they get too impatient. So they'll be presented with this gap opener situation and they'll actually try to run in and try and get a hit in. And if you're hitting the tail and it's a weak point, it probably is worth it. But usually the issue with that is that the monster is basically gaining pure initiative on you because the monster has no hits done naturally, or by creating a 2 second or more time advantage on top of you when the monster naturally has more initiative. That means by the time you finish this attack here and get an attack on the tail, he's already starting his next attack, and you're typically going to be caught in the recovery animation of your attack and he's going to punish you for it. So that's why I say, if it's 2 seconds or more distance between you and the monster on a gap opener, it's not even worth trying to run in and try get an attack on him. Now, some weapons, of course, have tools that can deal with this. For example, Lance has charge. Lance has one of the best gap closers in the game. He can just charge straight and stay on his butt. That naturally fits for Lance because Lance does not want a sheath. Lance has one of the slowest sheaths in the game. So if you can just gap close this and just stay on him, of course you're going to do that as a Lance. But say like Charge Blade movement is not good. Like if you're going to sheath and sprint to him, that's already 1.5 seconds to sheath, and then you're going to sprint and then you have to unsheath after that. That's just not going to work. And the natural run speed of Charge Blade in Sword and Shield mode, which is the faster mode, is still not enough time to reach him. So for the case of Charge Blade, one thing you could do is, like, if you're about to overcap on files, you could just recharge your shield. So you could just do a round slash combo to recharge your shield. So you're still doing something productive in that downtime. It's not the end of the world. And that's the whole theme of this, is if you're not going to attack, you have to ask yourself, well, what am I doing that's productive or that's helping me advance the hunt, right? And it's not always going to be damage. Now let's take another scenario here where, say you and the monster were more in the middle of the arena. Now, say the monster does a charge, you block it or dodge it, whatever it is, and say you're in a situation like this, where you're standing here. Well, your positioning is naturally better, right? Because the monster is going to keep charging to the wall and he can't keep going, right? He's just going to stop here. And of course, when he's still running into the wall like this, it's still he still has a active hitbox, so you obviously don't want to touch him yet until he's in recovery. But this is a much better position. You can just turn around and start attacking him. Now, this is where you can attack the tail if it's a weak spot. Some monsters' weak tails are not weak spots. You kind of don't want to attack the rear legs. Most monsters' rear legs are not weak spots. This is a really good opportunity, though, to attack the legs. A lot of the monsters can be toppled by attacking their legs, at least in Monster Hunter World. One mistake I see beginners do is they try to go and attack the head from here. And if you look at the situation here, that's the same situation as if you were here, and trying to attack the tail, right? This distance is the same distance as if you were here and trying to run over here to attack the head. It's the same distance, and it's the same mistake. You don't want to do that. Just accept you're not going to get a clean hit on the head, or you risk getting punished because you're already bleeding into the monster's attack window. He's going to regain initiative on you. So here, like I said, just attack the legs. You can build up towards the topple that way. If the tail's a weak spot, that's a great way to build up damage naturally as well, because the positioning is just given to you there. All right, let's talk about another situation. So let's say your back is against the wall here. Say the monster is here. It's got you backed up against the wall. Now, first of all, if you are not a guarding weapon, this is a situation you never want to be in. As a evading type weapon, you always want to be circling. Sort of like in Tekken or 3D fighting games, you never want your back against the wall. You want to circle around this way so that you're turning the monster this way. So you always have some room against your back. Because, right, if the monster does a charge here and your back is against the wall, he's just going to keep charging and his hitbox lasts a long time. You can't evade window this, right? So you're just going to be trapped. You're just going to take damage no matter what. You can't iframe this as an evasion weapon. Now, the exception that I hinted at earlier is if you're a guarding weapon. So if you're a guarding weapon, it's totally fine to have this scenario because you can just guard. Once the hitbox collides with you and you guard it, then his hitbox is effectively deactivated for the rest of the animation. But if you're a guarding weapon, this is not the end of the world because he's going to charge here, he's going to continue his hitbox, he's going to end up here, and you're probably going to get knocked back here, still butt against the wall. Again, it doesn't matter. You still have defensive guard option, so you can just follow up your attack here. And it may be a little bit awkward, but at least you have access to the head here and you have access to the legs here. So the uptime is not really an issue for guarding weapons with their back against the wall. In general, guarding weapons favor tight areas. So, if this was a hallway, a very tight hallway, guarding weapons excel in those scenarios because they can just guard it, and they'll always stay close to the monster that way. Whereas evasion weapons, they prefer open areas like this. So if you're evading weapon like switch axe, or if you're just mainly focusing on evasion for sword and shield, or dual blades is a pure evasion weapon, has no guard whatsoever, you always want to stay as close to the center as possible of the arena so that you have room to actually dodge. And the nice thing about those evasion weapons, with the exception of switch axe, I would say, is their mobility is pretty good. Like sword and shield, hammer, even Insiglaive to some extent, dual blades. So even if the monster does create a gap opener with you, those mobile weapons can at least close the gap more efficiently. Ultimately, you have to make the judgment call of whether you're going to pursue uptime and attack the monster in this standard gap opener situation, or if you want to just stay here and let the monster come back to you. There's nothing wrong with just waiting here, sheathing, sharpening, using items, etc., and then letting the monster charge back to you. It's much faster for the monster to do the gap closer on you so that you can get your uptime back rather than you trying to gap close on him. With the exception of Lance, of course. Lance has the best gap closer. Hope this got you thinking about gap openers a little bit more. This is a common mistake I see beginners make because they try to attack the monster when they don't have any initiative on the monster, because the initiative is always regained in the monster's favor when they gap open on you. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching.